Hello, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for our very first Controllers Corner session. My name is Lonnie, and I'm a business solutions consultant here at CRGroup. I work predominantly with the business team, doing some implementations and training on Dynamics GP and its related modules. We've designed this series of free webinars to help Dynamics users take their GP to the next level. Something we're asked a lot about is how to manage your capital assets in GP rather than in Excel or off-ledger tools. So today's Controllers Corner session is devoted specifically to just that. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Today's presentation will be recorded and will be available on demand later this week on the Controllers Corner webpage on the CRGroup website. Also, I encourage you to ask questions, so please submit them in the GoToWebinar panel, and I will certainly do my best to get to them at the end of today's presentation. And finally, this session counts for a half hour of continuing professional development hours, and we will email an individual certificate to all attendees this week. The key items we're going to cover today are the benefits of implementing Dynamics GP Fixed Assets module. We'll show a brief demonstration of some basic setup windows and how the module functions. Some functions available for some special cases or mass change requirements. And finally, what migration strategies are available in your current fixed assets history from an off-ledger tool into Dynamics GP. So some of the benefits of the fixed assets module include the ability to be accurate and get accessible information at any time. You can easily make changes to one or many assets and capture necessary asset data for reporting purposes, including details of the original purchase, where the asset is physically located, and who the owner or user of that asset might be. It's easy and reliable to depreciate your assets. You can manage asset depreciation with any of the 16 depreciation methods available, with the ability to back out depreciation if required, recalculate it if needed, or project depreciation for forecasting and budgeting needs. GP Fixed Assets integrates to other Dynamics GP modules, namely the Accounts Payable module. Entering a fixed asset is made easy through this integration and allows for purchasing information to follow the asset for easy reference in the fixed assets subledger. For any customers that are currently using Dynamics GP versions 2013 or newer, already have access to the fixed assets module. All that's really required is some minimal configuration time from our team to get you started, and you're off to the races. So with that said, I'm going to actually pop us into a demo environment and show you how easy it is to add an asset into GP and run depreciation. So the fixed assets module is found within the financial module of your Dynamics GP environment. And I'm going to touch on a couple of small setup items before I show you how we add an asset. Your setup has a couple of windows required. Not all of these are required setup windows. It depends on some of the functionality you want to use within fixed assets. The most important ones tend to be your book and your class. So books are basically your depreciation opportunities or methods, in that you can track multiple methods of depreciation through different books and give you some comparatives. Only one book is used predominantly to record depreciation to your general ledger, but you can keep multiple books so that you can use it to look at the differences between depreciation methods from one book to another. Classes are for your asset classes. So, everybody has different types of assets that they track that have different depreciation methods. So we need to set up classes for your assets. That could be your furniture and fixtures, your computer hardware, computer software, etc. And once we set those up, we actually combine that information to develop what we call the book class. So our book would then be linked to specific classes in which we can depreciate. So in here, I can see that there are a ton of different depreciation methods available within Dynamics GP. We have yet to come across a customer that has a depreciation method that is not available in Dynamics GP. So within the book class setup, you're setting up what your rules are around depreciation and sort of your first month or first year depreciation rules. So that's some of the setup components associated to that. When we're ready to add an asset, we do this through the purchasing side. And within the setup, we've created a fixed asset clearing account. And the reason for that is because it gives you the ability to easily cross-check assets that have been added to your AP subledger and your fixed assets subledger to make sure that everything has actually been added appropriately across the page. So from a reconciliation perspective, it ensures that all assets are being captured on your subledger side when you're putting them through the AP side. So I created an invoice in here from our folks at Office Design Systems, and we're purchasing some boardroom furniture from them in the amount of $3,000. And I've ultimately chosen to distribute this to my fixed assets clearing account. What this clearing account now does is it's a trigger account linked to my fixed assets account. So when I go through and post this transaction, I can now go to fixed assets, and under my financial side, under cards, I'll see a window for general. If I click on general, I can now add my next asset ID number. Now you can actually auto-populate these fields as well in the settings if you want for individual classes. And once I do that, I can see there's a purchases bar up here and also a purchase button at the top. So you can use either method to add your asset. And when I click on that, I can see my Office Design Systems invoice for $3,000 is available to add. So if I click on that, it's now going to pull the information that's related to that asset, and I can now select the class ID that it belongs to. So my description from my invoice pulls, there's my boardroom furniture, the acquisition date, the acquisition cost, and if I click on the blue arrow beside acquisition cost, I can expand to see some other details. So in here, I can expand the window and I can see here's the vendor that we purchased this asset from, the voucher ID, the invoice number that was associated to it, and its total cost. So again, all of the payable transaction details are following the asset from AP into your fixed assets subledger for easy tracking. I can also click any of these links and it will drill me back to the original transaction or original vendor based on what I want to see. Once I have created the details of my asset, I can save this. And because we have the feature of auto-adding book info, by selecting the class ID, it's actually already added book information as it relates to this asset for me. So when I select this, I can see now all my depreciation methods have filtered across. So my place and service date, May 1st, here's my cost basis for depreciation, and the original life years that have been pulled from my book class for this book and this class of assets. So again, really easy. It's a very simple process. We added through AP. We did two quick clicks of a button in your fixed assets module, and we've now added our asset into GP as well as added all of the book information as it relates to depreciation. So now, when it comes to the end of the month or end of a period where you would like to actually run depreciation, there's a couple of options available. You can depreciate all of your assets using the depreciate routine, or you can depreciate one asset at a time. Entirely your choice. Most people obviously would depreciate all their assets at once to make life simpler. But in this case, I'm going to show you the depreciation and how it works just with this asset ID that we just created. So if I put in my asset ID and I select my depreciation book that I want to use, and I would select the date in which I want to run depreciation. So in this case, I purchased it on May 1st. I want to run depreciation at the end of May to account for my depreciation expense. And once I do that, I would click depreciate. It runs the depreciation and notifies me when depreciation is completed. So now my depreciation itself has been done. What happens within fixed assets being its own subledger, I then have the ability to do a GL posting of all of this information that I've been collecting throughout the period. So as I'm adding assets, it's sitting waiting to be posted to the GL. As I'm running depreciation, it's also sitting waiting to be posted to the GL. So now I can click on this GL posting window and I can select my posting date and I say, well, I want it to be May 31st. I can give it a reference. And I can select the period in which I want to pull the transactions for. So once I click process, it's going to show me all the transactions that have transpired. So any assets that I've added, it's going to remove from my clearing account. So there's our $3,000 for the clearing account. And there's my depreciation that I ran related to this particular asset. So this asset is being depreciated for the month of May, and it's created a $35.71 entry to my depreciation expense and my accumulated depreciation account. So when I'm ready, I can then click post, and this is going to go through to the general ledger side and create a financial batch that I can post to my GL. So again, by having the clearing account, it allows me to go back and make sure that at the end of the month, my clearing account is 0 and that we didn't miss any assets as part of the posting process. There's also lots of reporting available within GP fixed assets. A lot of you, when you're going through the audit process, have to build out usually continuity schedules in Excel for your auditors to be able to review. So there's lots of different reporting capabilities available. And in the activity reports, there are some continuity schedules available out of the box. Now, the reports are predominantly in what they call report writer, so they don't have the ability to be exported. However, if you are currently using the SQL Reporting Services reports, you can actually download some of these existing reports into an Excel-based format if your auditors prefer Excel. So if I were to run this particular report on this one asset that I created, it shows me that I had an addition this year of $3,000 and opening balance is 0. It shows me what my year-to-date depreciation is, and then it shows me ultimately what my ending balance and net change are for this particular asset. And again, these continuity schedules can be run by class, by assets. There's lots of sorting capabilities available in terms of how you can run these reports and give continuity schedules by class to your specific auditors to review. You can also do all assets as a group so that you would basically see an asset continuity schedule by each individual asset. So that's a sort of brief overview of how you can add an asset through AP, how it then gets added to your fixed assets subledger, and then how we can report on that and run depreciation and post to our GL. So we managed to get through that very simple exercise in a matter of minutes. So obviously in terms of managing your assets becomes a much more simple and automated process in terms of being able to function and run your depreciation quickly every month and post it very quickly every month without going through the painstaking exercise of reconciling everything through an Excel-based spreadsheet. I'll talk briefly about the projection option as well. We do have the option within GP to project assets depreciation, which is actually a really nice option for forecasting and budgeting if you have a very specific forecasting and budgeting model where you actually want to pick up a fairly accurate depreciation expense. And it actually runs exactly the same way that the depreciation runs. I can pick a period in which I want to project to, and I can select any and all of the books on file and click projection. And it will then run a projection for me based on all the assets that I have in the system. And now I can actually run reports on fixed assets based on the projections themselves. So in this case, I can run it in detail, which would give me asset by asset, or I can run it one asset at a time, or I can run it by class, depending on what it is I'd like to sort by. So when I print that report, it then gives me a projection of what's happening with all of my individual assets, one asset at a time, in this case by detail. At the bottom, it would then give me a total depreciation expense in terms of what's being depreciated to that date. So again, a very quick overview, but I think you can see from that that this is a really simple module to use. It's very efficient. It can be very effective in helping you manage your assets and your depreciation as needed. So there are some special case functions that we see happen at times with GP. There may be times when you purchase an asset that will not necessarily be placed into service right away. The fixed assets module allows you to track the acquisition date for the asset in the general asset subledger. But in the depreciation book, you're actually able to define a completely different place in service date. And depreciation actually functions from the place in service date, so that depreciation will only begin once that asset has been placed in service and is being used. So this is a great function to have. We do have customers that do this regularly, so that depreciation is only starting when they're actually utilizing the asset. We have had clients that purchase assets that have to be further developed before they can be placed into service and depreciated. And this may require a group of assets being tracked together. So for example, a service vehicle may be purchased, but there needs to be advertising and signage added to it. Maybe work needs to be done on the vehicle before it gets put on the road. And so what we do in cases like this is we sometimes create an asset class for non-depreciating assets. And we keep them in this class with all their respective costs to then be transferred to a depreciable class once it's ready to be used by the organization. And what's nice is you can actually group these assets by a master asset ID. So even though they're individual assets and being depreciated individually, you can report on them using the master asset class ID so you can see how they're linked together. When you change a depreciation sensitive field in fixed assets, you'll actually be advised. And then you're going to be asked if you want to recalculate depreciation for the life of the asset, which will go back to the place in service date, the year to date of the asset, which would only go back to the beginning of the current fiscal year you're currently operating in, or to only adjust depreciation moving forward. And only then future depreciation would be taken at the new rate. So the nice thing about this is as assets change, whether it's the remaining life or the value, anything that is a depreciation sensitive field, you have the ability to go backwards to its inception, to a current fiscal year starting date, or only move forward, and the system gives you those options. When we implement the fixed assets module in GP, there are predominantly two options available to migrate your fixed assets data, usually from an off-ledger book like Excel into GP. The first is what we refer to as the simple migration. This would require the sum of each of your asset classes being put together to create one asset per class in GP. And then we continue to depreciate that until the net book value is ultimately zero. Then any assets moving forward, once fixed assets is implemented, would be tracked in detail within GP. The second option available is the detailed migration, which includes providing all of the asset details for each individual asset for all of your history so that they can be tracked separately in GP along with your new assets all in detail. From our perspective, unless there is a really compelling reason why you would need to track all of the detail in GP for assets that have already been acquired and partially depreciated, our recommendation tends to be the simple migration strategy. This method requires less effort on part of your staff to rekey all of this data into an appropriate importing template, but also the data is available in the existing file that you have in the event you want to reference that information later. So just because we're moving your assets out of Excel into GP doesn't necessarily mean you're going to just delete your Excel file like it never existed. So that information still does exist in your off ledger if you really need to review it at any point in time. All right. If you do have any questions following today's webinar that you sort of think of after the fact, you are more than welcome to reach out to us here and contact me directly or any member of our team. Anybody from the team would be more than happy to provide you any information you require. So thank you again to everyone for joining us today. I hope that you found this helpful in preparing you for your fixed assets implementations that may be upcoming. A reminder that you will receive a certificate this week to mark your professional credit hours, and this session was valid for a half hour of time. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to check out other upcoming Controllers Corner sessions on our website, crgroup.com/controllers-corner. And finally, a survey should appear after the webinar. Please take a moment to provide your feedback so we can work to keep improving these sessions. So thank you again, and as I mentioned, feel free to reach out to anyone here at CR Group if we can assist you in getting more of your Dynamics GP system operational and functioning. Thank you everybody so much, and have a wonderful day.